Welcome back to The Explainer. So, right now, there is this massive political paradigm shift unfolding in Kenya. And honestly, it's being live streamed, tweeted, and completely directed by Gen Z. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating case study of generational change. We've got a new, hyper-connected youth demographic that is basically ripping up the old rulebook for civic engagement. This isn't just about one single election cycle, and it is definitely not business as usual. It's about an entire generation standing up, using platforms like TikTok and X to fundamentally alter a nation's political DNA. If you want to know where modern youth-led movements around the globe are heading, well, this is exactly where you need to look. Okay, let's dive right into this. Is Kenya's politics actually helping, or is it hurting its young people? That right there is the central, burning question driving today's analysis. For a really long time, the formal political arena just felt completely disconnected from the daily grind of the youth. The decisions being made in the capital, they seemed worlds away from the hurdles young people were jumping, just trying to build a life. But man, right now, we're seeing a seismic reaction to that exact question. Young Kenyans are absolutely done sitting on the sidelines. They're actively auditing their political system, pushing its boundaries, and demanding to know loudly if the current structures are actually built to support their future, or if they're actively holding them back. To really wrap our heads around this shift, here's the roadmap for today. We'll kick off with Kenya's new political era, then look at the cost of living crisis, objectively break down the great tax debate, dive into the digital youth economy, and wrap up with reshaping the political future. All right, Section 1, Kenya's new political era and the rise of Gen Z activism. And this brilliantly illustrates why things feel so profoundly different on the ground today. We are watching a massive clash of methods. For decades, literally decades, the traditional political playbook relied heavily on organizing along ethnic or tribal lines and, passing out short-term political handouts. That was just the established way to lock in a voting bloc. But Gen Z? They're entirely rewriting those rules. They're leveraging their highly organized social media networks to aggressively demand issue-based politics and real accountability. They're basically telling leaders, look, we don't want empty gestures, we want measurable, systemic action. Whether it's fixing roads, creating actual jobs, or improving public services, it's a total pivot from legacy politics to a fierce demand for transparent, results-driven governance. Moving on to Section 2, the cost of living crisis, which is the massive economic catalyst here. Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is that to actually understand the protests and all this online mobilization, we have to look directly at the harsh economic realities fueling them. Young Kenyans are facing these immense compounding burdens. First off, food. Soaring prices mean that just buying basic groceries is severely straining daily budgets. It leaves almost no room for anything else. Then, you add in fuel. High fuel prices don't just hurt drivers at the pump. They jack up public transport costs and increase the overhead for literally everything transported across the country. And finally, housing. Exorbitant rent is just squeezing the young urban population, especially the folks flocking to cities like Nairobi looking for a shot at success. When an entire generation is fighting just to cover the bare essentials, well, political promises that ignore those realities just sound completely hollow. This daily economic squeeze is the absolute catalyst for their movement. Which leads us to Section 3, the great tax debate, centered around the finance bill. So the crucial point here is understanding the extreme balancing act at play with this highly debated finance bill. On one side, governments introduce new taxes because, at the end of the day, they fundamentally need revenue. They have to service sovereign debt, fund national development, build infrastructure, and just keep the state running. But on the exact opposite side, citizens vehemently oppose some of these proposed measures, things like taxes on bread, digital content creation, or mobile money transfers, purely because of affordability. I mean, when your food, fuel, and rent budgets are already maxed out, throwing an additional tax burden on everyday necessities feels downright impossible. It is the ultimate tightrope of governance, right? Balancing that macro, national need to raise funds against the micro, everyday reality of citizens just trying to survive. Next up, Section 4, the digital youth economy as the new battleground. To really grasp the Gen Z perspective, we have to look at how young Kenyans are actually making a living today. Kenya is widely known as the Silicon Savannah for a very good reason. The traditional 9-to-5 office job, that's no longer the only or even the primary path to success. Fueled by super high mobile internet penetration, young Kenyans have carved out an entirely new digital economy. We're talking about a massive boom in international freelancing, explosive growth in local content creation, launching online businesses, and a huge shift toward remote work. And these aren't just hobbies. This is how a highly connected class of digital workers puts food on the table and pays that crazy urban rent. So when government policy, whether that's direct digital taxation, fees on mobile money, or new internet regulations threatens this digital ecosystem, it directly threatens their livelihoods. And because they are digital natives, they organize and push back instantly online.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds into reshaping the political future.
So what exactly does this massive digital and economic shift mean for upcoming elections? Well, it means we're witnessing a total transition in how political campaigns have to be run. Young voters are completely rewriting the job description for political office. They want leaders who actually deliver on issues, which fundamentally changes the criteria for political success. The days of just securing votes by showing up, making a grand speech, or appealing to old historical allegiances, those are fading incredibly fast. Gen Z is demanding a platform built on measurable results. Are you fixing the cost of food? Are you supporting rather than hindering the digital economy? If a leader cannot confidently and clearly answer those specific questions, they are going to struggle immensely to win over this vital, engaged demographic.
Which brings us to this incredibly powerful takeaway. Politics affects every aspect of life. Informed citizens are important. This right here is the core, defining realization of Kenya's Gen Z. They've recognized that politics isn't just some abstract elite game played out in the halls of parliament. It is deeply, inextricably intertwined with their daily survival. The policies debated in those halls literally determine the price of their commute, the rent of their apartment, and the viability of their online jobs. This vivid realization is exactly why they are urging each other to be highly informed, to actually read the policy documents, and to think critically, instead of just blindly following established political camps. We've explored how young Kenyans are fundamentally transforming their political landscape, fiercely demanding accountability and fighting for their economic survival. It's just an extraordinary reminder of the impact a highly informed, digitally mobilized demographic can have on an entire nation's trajectory. So, I want to leave you with this final thought to take away from our explainer today. We are watching Gen Z actively reshape the future of elections in Kenya. But looking at your own community, your own local policies, and your own leaders, are you thinking critically about your own civic responsibilities? Thank you so much for joining me, and keep asking the hard questions.